that down, Fumi Saito.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Write That Down. I'm Justin Knipper. I edit at FightGameMedia.com. I am a staff writer at F4W Online and WrestlingObserver.com. I am back with Japan's leading pro wrestling author and writer and historian and broadcast journalist and sociologist, and I said historian, right? Mr. Fumi Saito. Yes, like I said, we're back. We present to you this week Riki Choshu Part 3, the third part of our series on Mr. Riki Choshu. This week we discussed mostly Choshu's life after New Japan, after being a wrestler, in a more of a manager slash promoter slash creative role as a wrestler who is not the Riki Choshu we came to know in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, transitioned to a different function in a lot of ways. We talked about Double J, or World Japan Wrestling, where it was Choshu's short-lived company that was an offshoot from New Japan, just like 01 was, just like All Japan with Noah with their splinter group. This was another one of the splinter groups after the passing of Baba and after Inoki was doing his Inokiism thing. Choshu had Double J, and we talked a bit about that and his other projects, and eventually talking about how he has, up to today, become this full-blown Japanese celebrity sensation in his later years. And a lot of it has to do with social media. So we'll get into that today too. And that's it. This is, even though it's 3 parts, this was, there's still broad strokes, and we haven't covered every single little piece of his career. So if there isn't something that we covered, let us know and we'll talk about it. If you have questions, comments, whatever, talk to us on social media. Get a hold of us via Fight Game Media Online. We have details at the end of the show, how to do that, how to reach us, how to reach Fumi. That's cool. A little more housekeeping before we get started, people. If you have not already, please subscribe to the Fight Game Media Network free podcast feed. It's on Spotify, Apple, Downcast, wherever you're listening to your podcast. Just go to the page, find the subscribe button, click that, because that little bit of work helps us out so much. Like, wow. No, for real, it does. Oh, also, I have a book out on Amazon. It's called Stronger Than All. It's a digital book covering all of the New Japan matches from the first 2 years of the show. New Japan Strong, the American branch of the company. It's cool. And if you have a Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. So there you go. All right, enough of that. Let's get into Riki Choshu, Part 3. Like you said, it's not typical, because there are a lot of different. It's not a typical wrestler's path. He did a lot of different things too, but it was all related.
It also showed that what era we were in. Of all people, Riki Choshu was one of the first major league pro wrestler that got very expensive paycheck from Hustle.
Okay, well, so. In Hustle, what did he function as more of, as a character?
Participate.
Yeah.
They wanted Riki Choshu on the show. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, you pay for Scott Hall and Kevin Nash's service. Hustle had Mick Foley and Goldberg. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And also had Bob Sapp.
How do you describe Hustle?
Put that together.
How do you describe Hustle to somebody who's never seen it?
It was a very unique Hustle, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a very unique, very different kind of wrestling company that existed just 5-year period, 2005 to 2010, 11. So a little over 5-year period. They're run by DSE, Dream Stage Entertainment. It's a new company that was formed so they can have one match. It was one match only idea, that it was original Nobuhiko Takada against Hickson Gracie Tokyo Dome match from 97. The company was formed, and the show was named Pride, and the rest. And the company structure has changed a couple of times, but it was pretty much major force of this MMA and overlapping little bit of pro wrestling world, and really, Pride was really popular, and the division, the Pride company decided to run somewhat a traditional wrestling shows too at the same time, and Takada and his friends wanted to do it too, and there you had this very strange wrestling shows for 5-year period. Yeah. What was your initial reaction, Justin?
It was hard to. It was really hard to absorb because it was such a sudden jump from just 4 or 5
Japanese
years ago.
pro wrestling, yeah.
I mean, all Japan was still around in 2000, so it wasn't too far behind that, and it felt like a flip flop between WWE and Hustle. It felt like
Hustle was a terrible interpretation of WWE, though.
and that was also the time where WWE was the only game in town. They really became a big deal in Japan, so it felt like a reaction to that, to WWE's kind of rise in Japan.
After
in the early
2001 on, that for
when they were on TV
not during this pandemic, but WWE for 20, last good 20 years, yes, always had their own WWE Japan tour. No help from any existing Japanese group, and they drew like rock concerts, international rock stars type of deal, and a different kind of crowd, and yeah, it's pretty popular, I think. And but the Japanese, it was Japanese wrestling community that and the writer and people that misinterpreted WWE, kind of really judged WWE as a 1985 WrestleMania Mr. T kind of WWE, and they really stereotyped it in their head for 35 years or so, and it didn't had Japanese wrestling community had no idea about WWE's ruthless aggression or attitude era type product.
It felt like that, and it really felt like MMA or whatever had developed by then was going to be the number one attraction going forward. It felt like this pro wrestling stuff.
Almost did. Yeah,
it felt
as
dead
far as combat,
in some ways.
Yeah, or more popular than boxing or something. Yeah.
So it's fun. So somebody like Riki Choshu is the symbol of the opposite of what Hustle was, and having him involved
It
is
just tell you how bad business was. That people like Riki Choshu and Fujinami, all working as a singular wrestler, like freelancing, who's like a new big fish in town, something. Yeah. So they Hustle and the Pride Company, Dream Stage Entertainment, DSE, they had money to play around for first 5, not 5 years, but first quite a few years. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of, I wouldn't call them dream matches, but I would call them random pairings.
Mick Foley, Bill Goldberg, Nash and Hall together. Yeah, but they come in. Well, Aja Kong is domestic superstar, so the storyline will be given. But those Nash, Hall, Mick Foley, Goldberg, they were brought in almost cold, and they would not give you your A game, though. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Probably Mick Foley's case, yes, but Goldberg, Nash and Hall probably just come in and do a show like another day at the office and leave.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it was like everything what was wrong with wrestling, business at the time in Japan was right. This, represented and displayed right there in what a Hustle was doing at the time.
And Takada was kind of evil,
the ruler,
character.
Dictator. You had this Hitler costume, and just awful thing. And of all people, like you are, Toshiaki Kawada from All Japan, he turned himself into Dangerous K, the different character. He himself called it different characters. So he's not Kawada, so it's okay to be doing what he would be doing with Hustle. He turned himself into a comedy wrestler.
Yeah,
but then again,
dancing.
part of Kawada, something that he wanted to do and couldn't do was Giant Baba, an umbrella, sort of. and almost snapped, right? Sort of.
Yeah, I think so. Well,
Yeah.
Choshu got through that, but
Yeah, today we're talking about Choshu, and Choshu too. He worked, quite a few dates. Yeah, nothing important, just tag team match situation, and just come in and do what Riki Choshu would do: the clothesline somebody, and scorpion deathlock somebody, and these hustle wrestlers will be flying all over the place. That's what they really wanted, and that kind of display was really, really like, wow, this Riki Choshu can be bought. And it was very hard for me to process. Yes.
so yeah, it was a different landscape. And a couple years before that, he did try his first real, I guess you would call it like a serious attempt at another promotion or alternative promotion to Noah.
New company, yeah, Double J, yeah.
World Japan
Pro Wrestling, yeah. Ill-fated because it lasted only 1 year. But they had, pretty big budget first. And you have Riki Choshu, Masa Saito, and Yatsu makes comeback. Of course, Riki Choshu is the guy, and his opponent would be none other than Tenryu. He joined that group too. And Kensuke Sasaki, and a little bit Atsushi Onita, and guest appearance of Hiroshi Hase, and Hara Kenso Suzuki too. And yeah, and Road Warriors, yeah. And they started with like Yokohama Arena show, and they were going to do the 15 consecutive Riki Choshu and Tenryu match, but the third match in Tenryu, somebody got injured, and they didn't do that. But yeah, they had the strange momentum that some portion of wrestling audience, saw, in the middle of almost like a wrestling pandemic. Like it's like wrestling has really entered into dark age, that New Japan split into maybe 4 or 5 different, with Riki Choshu's Double J, right? That by then, 2002, Keiji Muto and his guys, like Kojima and Kendo Kashin, they joined All Japan. And 2001, Hashimoto and his guys, like Shinjiro Otani and Tatsuhito Takaiwa and Masato Tanaka of former FMW, he joined, and therefore you had 01 formed. And there are quite a few companies that looked a lot like New Japan then. Are you following me?
Oh yeah, it was a strange time because nothing felt unified. It felt like everything split into a few different parts.
Yeah, because it's pretty far away for these cluster, but All Japan Pro Wrestling and Misawa's Pro Wrestling Noah, it was as if we had two versions of All Japan Pro Wrestling.
Kinda, yeah.
Right? Yeah, it did, because guys are the same, they work the same. And New Japan now, I'm talking about around year 2003. It was Riki Choshu's Double J company. They all worked like New Japan wrestlers. And Hashimoto's 01, yeah, they're obvious spin-off of New Japan. And Keiji Muto's version of All Japan 2002 to 2003, it looks more like another spin-off of New Japan, a lot more so than it is All Japan Pro Wrestling, for that matter. And it was really strange time. I'm trying to get this image across, sort of, yeah. And Riki Choshu was also part of that, yeah.
And what I think a lot of people should realize is that the crowds were much smaller than they were years before.
Yeah. Because of K1 and Pride too, very popular, real popular. Yeah. The beginning was Takada, Hickson Gracie, and the year after that there was not Pancras much, but Masakatsu Funaki himself challenged Rick Hickson Gracie at Tokyo Dome 98 or so, yeah, that he lost to. And yeah, just one after another, this former UWF guys that were super big, huge superstar, they're losing to Gracie. And it was a lot to do with Japan's dark age of pro wrestling too. Yeah,
it was sort of the beginning of that. It was the two prides with Hickson versus Funaki and Takada. I think Takada had 2 matches, didn't he?
too much. That's
Mhm.
pride. But the Funakis was like a thing called like a dynamite or something. It's a completely different fund, different promoter.
Mhm.
Yeah. But each time Hickson Gracie, himself, and he brought his entourage, and then every time, Hickson Gracie or Gracie family for that matter, when they have fight, you don't just bring in that fighter, right? But you have to bring in the entire family to camp, for
Mhm.
next 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. And yeah, it was very interesting. But Gracie, or especially Hickson Gracie in Japan, very marketable. And you know how Japanese wrestling fan or MMA fans, for that matter, that they admire somebody like Hickson Gracie. And Hickson Gracie really handled himself like young Korogach, like really. And he was really, really popular. His autobiography just came out this year and finally translated into Japanese. Yeah.
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that it just got easier to be an NFL fan, even if you live far away. Like maybe you like the Bears, but you're hibernating in Panthers territory. But with NFL Sunday Ticket, your out-of-market team is never more than a short distance away. Specifically, the distance from you to your remote control. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
What's up? It's Kaylee Cuoco. When it comes to travel, we all have a happy place. I just went to my happy place. I just went to Maui, and it was truly amazing. Priceline has always been about getting you to your happy place for a happy price with deals you really can't find anywhere else. Like up to 60% off select hotels in Costa Rica or 5-star hotels for 2-star prices in Cabo.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Yeah, there
So
was
that
always a
was-
tie to him in pro wrestling. That what do you call it? Not MMA, but that the idea of reality and the idea of how real the style was getting.
we had that, always had that in Japan, judoka against sumo, or, when they opened, Yokohama Bay, lots of sailor, man, and then sumo wrestlers started fighting, what you call it later, MMA, yeah. And yes, and always the judo against wrestling. And Riki against Masahiko Kimura basically was, of course, it was a pro wrestler against pro wrestler, but the idea was sumo against judo. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And how
Right.
big Inoki and Muhammad Ali was, and Inoki against William Ruska, that Holland, that gold medal judoka. And Chuck Wepner fight, of course. And that's always pretty much valued really high, those MMA fight, work or not. Yeah. So it really backfired, because it's MMA and they're not wrestling people, but they needed wrestling people, like a famous fighter, and there was, New Japan sent people. I talked this over and over, but the New Japan, Inoki for that matter, because he was still very, very influential. That he sent people like Manabu Nakanishi or Yuji Nagata or Kendo Kashin. They're all either Olympic or college wrestling champion with MMA training, but you don't have MMA fight against people like the Federer Emelianenko or Mirko Krokop only 24 hours after your regular wrestling match. How's that? It's just crazy.
So how did Riki Choshu view the shift in 2000s?
Yeah, it almost looked as if it was beyond his control, because after all, he was not a part owner of New Japan, but he was employee and wrestler and a booker and producer, right? And Inoki is in process of selling his New Japan Wrestling company to Yuke first, that game company, and also he, himself start shifting himself to more on MMA end, the whole boom, I think, period. Because in Inoki's mind, back in his days, wrestling and MMA was the one and the same. That was Inoki's, always same story. Back in his days, and it didn't really distinguish these two, combat sport. pro wrestling was, what you call MMA today, something like that. Yeah.
Mm.
It was all making sense while everything was like under, New Japan umbrella, and Inoki himself was a fighter and convincing, always have convincing match at the end of the day. But it was Inoki himself retired really physically, but I guess still had power or influence, of course, Then really shifted himself with MMA. Then, if you remember, for about 7-year period, New Year's Eve, there's the NHK's singing, the music festival thing, the red flag and white flag thing. But other channels, Channel 4, Channel 6, Channel 8, Channel 10, they all had Inoki Bomaye, the Dynamite, the Strong, the K1, the Pride. The other channel even had professional boxing match. It became New Year's Eve tradition that the MMA for about 7-year period. That's how big they were, And that was Dark Asia Pro Wrestling. Yes.
I think they even still do. Raijin tries to do things like that around.
Yeah,
New
but the
Year's
Raijin
times.
days might be numbered by now. Yes.
It's very different, very different time. Not
Yeah.
It just looks the same, but itself, it's not connecting the same way as it did 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm glad it's that 20 years have gone by. Yeah, it's a different structure and different people and different audience and different people, just different generation. Yeah, so we're looking back. The dark age of pro wrestling in Japan that really happened. And it really scares me to this day. It really does. Yeah, frightens me.
Do you think it'll happen again?
Oh no, not anytime soon. It wasn't like very much to do with millennium too. That lot of or most of all the good things of 20th century, somewhat came to an end at some point. This popularity of pro wrestling or New Japan or pro wrestling Noah or stuff is completely different from the popularity we had in 20th century. Different people, different time, different generation of wrestlers, and different generations of wrestling audience, the fans, and different producers making it too. Yeah. So I think it's all different now. Yeah.
So Riki Choshu by this point became more of a producer. He was in that producer role in the 2000s. And it was free.
Yeah.
We saw it with Double J.
But there had to be a falling out between New Japan and Riki Choshu, or he and Masa Saito and Katsuji Nagashima, the big executive of New Japan at the time, they wouldn't quit New Japan and start Double J. They had their winning plan, wouldn't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first year that they're talking about, they were running Tokyo Dome that year, 2003. With Riki Choshu and Masa Saito and Tenryu. It's like, wouldn't you need somebody like Hiroshi Tanahashi, right? I don't know, but you had to wait another 3 or 4 years for rise of superstar Hiroshi Tanahashi and Shinsuke Nakamura. Yeah, at the time they were still young, young lion. Oh my gosh, yeah.
So it was kind of like a period where Inoki had stepped down, Baba was gone, Choshu was more of a backstage personality, Fujinami was too. I think he was president of New Japan around this time. And
right, because that was his turn.
So there was nobody really in the spotlight.
You have to point out that the Muto's version of All Japan Pro Wrestling, because of Misawa and his guys, Pro Wrestling Noah's Ark, the whole project. Yeah, it was just chaotic, right? All the tradition, 20th century wrestling tradition, did come to an end. Yeah.
Yeah, and things seemed scattered for a while.
Yeah, and I guess that at the time in year 2003, Riki Choshu and his people and Katsushi Nagashima and his people was convincing enough still at that point to convince. I wouldn't say many sponsor, but the rich enough guys to run wrestling company or two for a year or two. How's that? How much would you need to run the wrestling company for 1 year and 1 year only? You know, because sponsor people just don't give you money. They expect you to start making money back within 3 years or so, right?
It's funny you mention it like that because for the past decade or so, Choshu's been doing a lot of 1 and 2 year, I guess, experiments. And then,
Ishingun era, Japan Pro Wrestling era, Riki Production era, yeah, and then New Japan era, yeah.
and well, even Lidette and the Glate company he's a part of in, a little bit of, not a major capacity, but
Oh,
still
yeah,
involved.
after 2006, 2007, you talk about that real pro wrestling or the legend pro wrestling, the Big Mouth Loud, or just another smaller spin-off of like New Japan style pro wrestling business or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, there are quite a few that I cannot remember even. Yeah, and Riki Choshu was always the main event because first show they usually see those smaller, late starter, that I can't remember a few names, but they usually starts with grand opening at the Korakuen Hall, and for some reason Riki Choshu was the main event of that evening. Yeah, and they was aiming, older audience, I think, and you can price a little higher for older wrestling fans, older audience, and also you can price a little higher at the Korakuen Hall. It's like the whole place is like ringside, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so interesting. But after all, the whole Riki Choshu is like, he's an individual, but he's like a wave that when he comes over, he just doesn't come along. He brings his, I don't know, his wave of people and entourage and a new wave of business or a couple other projects to come with it. He just doesn't do it himself. But when he shows up, he brings his new company over to introduce, or his new march came out, or his new, I don't know, YouTube or AM radio series starting or something. And yeah, always have something to announce. Yeah, Riki Choshu himself is like an entertainment company now.
Yeah, he's a brand.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. He's like his
So
own
it's
brand.
it's a household name. Yeah.
So a couple years ago, I guess we can talk about this now. I guess they call it the Choshu revolution, the social media revolution he had a couple years ago.
Yeah.
He found his way
Initially,
onto
it was
Twitter.
so much like Iron Sheik. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good.
Not as bad as that.
I mean, of course, not as extreme, but silly, kind of
Yeah,
silly.
in the silly way, because he just learned how to use his Twitter on his cell phone. I mean, the smartphone rather. That then he was free to type in, then upload whatever he felt like. But it was like, oh my gosh, let's not let him do that. His manager took his phone because the things that go up on the internet that matter, that way, that I guess they have to read it first. Don't let him do that, kind of thing. I don't think he's uploading his own Twitter now. He has things to say though, but somebody else has to type it. I think it's too dangerous, right? Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, like you said, he's a household name,
Oh yeah, definitely.
and Iron Sheik is a good, it's not as extreme, but it's good. It's a good kind of comparison to what he's like now.
Mm-hmm. And also he's a good sport, retired sports celebrity, male. He's a father, he's a grandpa, and he's a friend, and you know what I'm saying.
Mhm.
And yeah, so
Good image.
A very good image now. Yeah. And he was a bad guy in his days, but now he's retired, all smiling, happy, happy grumpy old man. How's that?
Yeah, always smiling in his pictures these days.
Yeah, like laughing.
Yeah, very different from the 80s. 80s, 90s.
Oh, the image he had in the ring and the backstage, or how he walks around, just oh god, it's like so. All in all, he was just just like, or a lot like Anthony Inoki, that you are Riki Choshu 24/7. Yeah, I guess today's wrestlers, are not as 24/7 as previous generation of wrestling superstars.
He does have a legacy, but it's hard to see the legacy because he's still so involved in the business.
Oh, not quite involved in the wrestling business anymore that much. Just he's in the public eye. He's on TV a lot. Mm-hmm. He has his own the YouTube channel with 32 million. The play. I counted it. It was like a 3,200万回some shit.
Like
32
million. Yeah.
Yeah, 32 million.
32 million.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody pushed the button. Yeah, that many times.
Why is that? Why do people connect with him so much?
I don't know. I don't think these, new popularity, or him being a new TV star this year, because I don't think that the Riki Choshu fans, today's Riki Choshu fans, are exactly wrestling fans or anything like that. I don't think. It's just, YouTube audience, and the YouTuber attracts different crowds, right?
Sure.
Not different, but the YouTuber attracts YouTubers, and they're just completely different dynamic out there, I think. Yeah. But for Riki Choshu's, it's what's interesting is at the end he did not really choose to stay in any of these wrestling companies. That he started out as one of the original young lion style rookie with New Japan right out of 72 Munich Olympic, and he was already a pro wrestler in 73, and just like other young lions, today's young lions, he was sent to excursion. At the time in mid-70s, Riki Choshu went to West Germany. And today's people don't know that, huh?
That's right, yeah.
How do you explain West Germany and East Germany? And the world was divided, There
was USSR Germany and European Western Germany.
Yeah, the socialist, communist, part of the world, to the free world and the capitalist society. And right in the middle, you had Berlin's Wall, right in the middle of Germany. Anyhow, Riki Choshu was sent to West Germany, now you don't have German wrestling. There are tons of wrestling company in both England and Germany, but they look much like American independent wrestling company, don't you think?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But in Riki Choshu days in 70s, when he went to West Germany, it was Otto Vance's company, and also worked Roland Bach's company. And European, the canvas mat was really hard, like your floor, wooden floor. And those were the days. Then he worked, there was a Riki Choshu and Korogach myth almost. It's almost like an urban legend that those two were going to, because obviously Korogach coached Riki Choshu in Japan. And a couple of years later, back in Florida, there was a few days of coaching that Riki Choshu and Korogach work out together, where there was no camera, no video camera, nothing, right? They just really worked out. And there's like two different versions of stories that Riki Choshu said, just screw this, because this is the type of conditioning training he'd done so much in his college amateur. And he wanted to learn how to work, right? To be a professional wrestler. teach me how to work. And then Korogachi wasn't that type of coach. He just give you this forever, forever and never workout, like to be the Superman, superhuman. And this is different kind of philosophy in pro wrestling. It's funny that Riki Choshu come from amateur wrestling background and a former Olympian, but what he wanted to learn from Carl was, hey, just teach me how to work instead of this. Isn't that interesting? Hello.
The result makes a lot of sense too, because I can't see Choshu as a disciple of anybody, like how Karl Gotch has his disciples, and how Inoki had his disciples, and Baba had his disciples. I can't see Choshu or somebody like Tenru, for that matter, to have. I can't envision them having somebody of authority so high above them
to answer to.
Yeah, I can't. Like, can you imagine
but
Choshu
Riki Choshu himself admit to that Inoki was that person for a long time. Yeah. That's why he had to go heel, They work against Inoki in the ring, and then you're equal, almost, but probably never will be, But that kind of things. That Fujinami is like he's trying to heal, but the people don't accept you to do anything else. Fujinami is like 100% babyface
forever.
Yeah, that doesn't change.
Sure.
If he grows his beard or anything, or have a match against Riki Choshu in single match, 25 times, 30, 40 times, it's still babyface. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of the Fujinami Choshu match, people cheered both guys. Yeah. And some of the spots they didn't like, they booed both guys because they weren't liking what they were seeing, not because they were heels, and that kind of thing. And now that they're both on TV, the Fujinami and his family is more like a cooking kind of, show. And Riki Choshu is like, have him go to restaurant and, finish up all the menus, or have him play the latest computer game that he knows nothing about, or it's just different. They utilize different theme, I think. Yeah. Because Kensuke Sasaki's on TV a lot, right? And Nobuhiko Takada's on TV a lot. Now that I'm expecting that Muto will be doing a lot of that, right? So
Sasaki is somebody maybe we should talk about. Maybe we could talk about him a little bit more, because I think he's, speaking of disciples, if Choshu had a number one disciple, it would be Sasaki Kensuke, because
of course, yeah.
I mean, even down for a while, down to the look, the same hairstyle, the same trunks, same wrestling style, just
clothesline stumps, younger,
Scorpion Deathlock,
sure, of course, and of course. But it was as if after Double J, we talked about Double J, that the World Japan Pro Wrestling very ill-fated.
Early 2000s.
2003, Double J run, that Akira Hokuto, Kensuke's strong wife, came right between Riki Choshu and Kensuke, I believe. And see, Kensuke himself invested some money into the Double J group, as much as Riki Choshu himself invested. Masa did too, and they were gonna make another major league of professional wrestling, like right next to New Japan type, and that was gonna be their plan. But yes, Kensuke Sasaki invested his own money into that he never, got it back, and that was the end of their relationship, I guess, for now. Yeah.
Oh, also, speaking of Double J, that's where Katsuhiko Nakajima got to start when he was
right. Then a 14, 15-year-old Kazuhiko Nakajima was a karate exhibition. Right.
Junior
then
high
he
school.
came to Kensuke. Yeah, then came to Kensuke's house and started living there, as their adopted son almost. And we got married from that house too. Yeah. So
it all connects. You can see the trace back to Choshu.
Yeah. This Double J time, the Kensuke Dojo, Kensuke and Akira Hokuto opened their own office and company. They trained people like Kento Miyahara, Masaki Tamiya, originally Katsuhiko Nakajima, of course, and a couple other guys too. So, when you think about this landscape of pro wrestling Noah and today's All Japan Pro Wrestling, Katsuhiko Nakajima of Pro Wrestling Noah roster, whereas Kento Miyahara is your focal point guy in All Japan Ring with multiple Triple Crown run. And they were both trained directly under Kensuke Sasaki and Akira Hokuto after Double J. Yeah. So not much Riki Choshu's fingerprint on it, but Masa trained him, yes. Trained both of them too. So there you go. Similar school of pro wrestling, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have that MMA influence. It's the school of wrestling that never adopted that part of what the other side of pro wrestling was doing.
The collar elbow tie up, lock up to your side headlock into your hammerlock into your double, the drop toe hold, the takedown, all these, American style professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No martial
American
arts
style.
Influence.
Not much submission to it, because in Riki Choshu's book, that's what you do at dojo. You don't use that for matches. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Right.
They're supposed to pin.
Yeah. Right. So it's like they'll do it at dojo because it's a sparring, situation that Fujiwara is a king at dojo, and then both young Fujiwara and young Riki Choshu were in it. They knew each other real well. But the Riki Choshu decided that that's not something you do in front of the audience, So you're wasting time, kind of thing. A different philosophy to it. But all in all, it's all still Inoki school of wrestling and Kawagachi school of wrestling. It just went different perspective or different extreme or something.
It's split. It's split in different philosophies or different paths.
Yeah, so that's why Inoki school of wrestling in early New Japan is something we really have to study. Kawagachi was, influence was there, but Vince McMahon Senior partnership was WWE, WWF at the time. Yeah, the influence was always there, and the mixed martial arts idea of Inoki, and Japanese heel faction idea of Inoki, basically, that made Riki Choshu a big, huge superstar. And today's wrestling, every single Japanese wrestling company, there's like a babyface faction and heel faction within Japanese, right? Even, so that the fingerprints are all over. Yeah, decades and decades later.
So I guess before we wrap everything up, these three parts, if you had to give listeners out there match recommendations for them to watch and study Riki Choshu, what are the main ones? Because a lot of this you could find on New Japan World for the most part.
New Japan World too, yeah. And something that's not on New Japan World, those 2 years, 85 and 86 with All Japan, that night after night after night, basically Riki Choshu's guys and Jumbo and Tenryu's guys stood together, okay? That the Jumbo and Tenryu's, All Japan faction, that they had six-man tag situation all year long. So any six-man tag, the videotape that's, out there, 85, 86, All Japan against Japan Pro Wrestling, that's a big one. And also 85, 86, real world tag team tournament where Riki Choshu and Yoshiaki Yatsu worked as a tag team and had the single, not a single, but the tag team tournament match against every single one of those important matches. Important teams like the Funks, that Terry Gordy, Stan Hansen, to Spivey, to Dynamite Kid, Davey Boy Smith, that the type of wrestlers Riki Choshu normally don't have matches against. And those are very important, videotapes. Riki Choshu against Harley Race, Riki Choshu against people like Bakwenko. Yeah, those are very, very rare case. Then back to New Japan, another set of single match against Fujinami and Inoki. And also this time you have Three Musketeer, Keiji Muto, Shinya Hashimoto, and Masa Chono, those are the generation that in 90s that the Riki Choshu had a lot of matches against. So all the different generations of the matchups, those are all interesting.
Hmm.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I think that there's tons to dig through. Yeah, if you have New Japan World, it has a lot of what we talked about.
Tigers, like Choshu against Tiger Chitsing, the Choshu against Vader, Scott Norton, Bigelow, all those.
Inoki.
Of course.
All the famous Fujinami matches.
Even Akira Maeda single match.
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of other stuff that's non-New Japan, but Japan Pro Wrestling, all Japan.
I remember what year that was. On 1 year, there was a Masato Tanaka against Riki Choshu single match at Korakuen Hall, I remember.
He's faced everybody, seemingly. I mean, he officially retired only a couple of years ago.
That's right. And he's on TV somewhere today. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure if people are interested, they could find his TikTok or Twitter and follow him that way. He has like over 1 million followers on Twitter as well. Yeah. Crazy. But so that's Riki Choshu in 3 parts. So thanks for all the feedback.
Well, everybody. Let's do the Kensuke Sasaki. Yeah, that too. Yeah. Yeah,
Kensuke Sasaki, he had his own...
Of course.
He had his own path, and he ended up doing quite different things.
He was the original Grand Slam champion.
Mm-hmm.
New Japan's IWGP, All Japan's Triple Crown, and Pro Wrestling Noah's GHC.
He was also one of the few Japanese heavyweight wrestlers that was on American television quite a bit in the mid-90s.
Oh, I suppose. Right.
At least in my memory.
And also, I loved the Hellraisers, Hulk Warrior, and the Power Warrior. Yeah, that was epic. Yeah. So we'll do Kensuke Sasaki shortly. Yeah.
Sure.
Even next week. Yes.
Sounds good. All right. So if people have questions on this or anything else for Fumi, where can we
find Twitter at Fumihikodayo, Fumihikodayo, Fumihikodayo on Twitter, or Fumi Saito on Facebook. Message me first. And actually, I'm on Instagram too. Yeah.
And I'm at Justin M. Knipper on Twitter, Knipper. So that's it. Riki Choshu, 3 parts. They're up on Spotify and Apple or wherever you're downloading this. So next week, we're going to start working.
We covered everything?
I think so. I think so.
I was still missing. Yeah. Think so? Okay.
If we missed any particular parts or moments that you wanted us to cover, let us know. Talk to us via social media, and we'll talk about it here next time. Easy as that.
Sounds good.
Okay, so until next time, Fumi, take it away.
So long from Tokyo.
Growing your business can mean big-time logistical questions, like how are we going to keep up with all these local deliveries? Let Uber Direct offer you a helping hand. With Uber Direct, you take orders on your website, app, or by phone. Then, drivers who are part of Uber's courier network pick them up from your store and deliver them to your customer's doorstep. Sounds simple, right? Delivery just got better with Uber Direct. Learn more at uberdirect.com.
Around the clock, air conditioning and heating coupled with cutting-edge equipment from Lennox means you can achieve perfect air each season. Learn more about special savings opportunities and federal tax credits by calling 818-506-4400 or 310-274-5525 or visit us online at aroundtheclock.com.